Hello, this is Gene. I want to talk about something that's really brought up some things that I used to talk about when I first started this channel. So I might get a little bit hot during this video. Um, Sometimes I have to stand up for men, and this is one of those times. I found out that recently that the former President 41, George Bush Sr., which personally, I didn't have any real issue with him. I thought he was a very moderate Republican. I don't know some of the things at the CIA, but he might actually know. But now a woman came out and said that she was sexually assaulted by a man in a wheelchair. He was 88 years old because her butt was touched by him. Now, as that might not be a good thing to happen to you when you are around somebody like George Bush, or the fact that you want to have autonomy of your body and no one should ever to touch you. It just brought up all the shit that's happened after Weinstein, and how I at first looked at this and said, well, maybe there's going to be a change in how Hollywood works. Although we don't think that's going to happen because the same people run the area, the whole community there. But what's happened since that is that the left has used that as a way to defame all men. They've taken away from all men are basically rapists, what they've been saying for the last 35 years, and really a lot during the last 15 years. And there's been a nice little pushback to that in the last 3 or 4 years online from the skeptic community and also from conservatives online, saying that's all bullshit. Whole 1 in 5 on campus and stuff. We debunked all that shit, trying to say that men are not as bad as everybody thinks they are. So that kind of like stopped there. Although people still say it, and still our government still touts it. We see a new Davos came in and got rid of the dear colleague letter, so due process. So this young writer put that out there. I think her name is Ash Snow, and I'll put her information below. She talks about Davos saying that this is a good thing, we'll have due process on campuses. Now, I had to respond to that because what's actually happened is, while that might help the almost 99% of the people that would ever be kicked out of school for any type of sexual issue, which would be men, so hopefully it'll help them, but it hasn't really changed in the real world. So I said that to her. I replied to her and said it hasn't really helped us in the real world. And because the left is now using Weinstein as a way to say all men are not just rapists, that we're all basically serial harassers as well. And what happens now is there's this phenomenon called the good man. And I talk about that on my channel. I've been talking about it for years. That when things come out and a man is accused of something like that, the other man will come out and say, I'm the good man. I'm going to tell you to your face and say how great I am, and say I would never do that to a female. And what happens, a lot of these guys we're finding out now, they're being accused for the same things. A lot of guys who are on the left side, who are male feminists, are being called out for that. Now, as a guy, and understanding how I understand that women lie about shit, doing it either for attention for themselves or money for themselves or for whatever, because other women did it, now they have to do it. They do the same things. So I don't necessarily believe any woman saying that any guy did this to them. I don't, unless you actually, at the time it happened, that you reported it. If it was harassment, you do it at the workplace, at the HR. If it's rape, you go to the cops and you report it. Then I'm going to sit there and take that off and just allow that to happen, the process to happen, and see what happens. Just because a woman 4 or 5 or 10 years later gets online saying, you did this to me, and what happens now, because we're men, and for the last 30 or 40 years, and the last 10 years, just being castrated by the media, by colleges, saying that we're the bad things, and everything in life is bad because of us, and almost specifically white men who are heterosexuals. Now, it hurts for all men as well, because any man will be looked at as somebody that's a serial harasser regardless. Color doesn't really matter. It just predominantly deals with white people because we are the majority in this country. Regardless of what everybody says, we still are. So of course we're going to be impacted more. And as the left says, all the white people, especially men, have more privilege. So if we have more privilege, then we're in a places of power that we're going to harass people because we have the power. So this is all what they want them to say anyway. And there was a nice video last night that Crowder did, and I'll leave that below, when he was talking to somebody about free speech, and that came up about racial things and all that stuff about power and privilege. And it's not really exactly what I'm talking about, but it's something that maybe you should look at if you haven't seen it. So a lot of these guys are basically have to come out and either apologize, and then when they do apologize, the problem that I have is that the guy comes out with the explanation. He says, look, I'm sorry that happened because we as men have been, like I said, castrated, that we have to apologize for everything. And it gets old after a while, but they come out, and especially because if you're a lefty, you're like, oh, I can't believe I did something wrong, even though that we had a sexual relationship and everything was fine, and then we sped up, and then this came out in the press about Weinstein, and then you just all of a sudden you're going to come out there and say, well, you did the same thing to me, and I want to make sure everybody knows that I'm a victim as well. And then you sit there, because you're a guy like that, and you just, I'm so sorry that I did it. And what happens is he might even explain what happened and say, hey, look, there wasn't something in my mind that I thought that I was going to harass you that way or sexually assault you that way. The one I'm talking about now, and if I can remember who it is, I'll put it down below. She said that he sexually assaulted her, but of course she didn't report it. I guess, in the old days, when guys would wake up with somebody that was a lang whale next to you because you were drunk so much, you're like, oh shit, that was a bad thing now. But women don't have that same thing. They can decide whatever, that it wasn't something they wanted to have happen. They can think 3 or 4 years later that even though it was consensual at the time, that it's not. And this is where the whole thing about being the good man. So this guy did this, and like I said, I'll try to put it below. And then guys that have a huge following on Twitter and also on YouTube basically said that his apology was not a real apology. All he was doing was trying to explain. I thought he was trying to explain himself. And just because these people are on the left, these guys on the right come out and they just want to bury him even more, instead of them thinking about it from a legal type of thing. Like, why did she report it? And why do we clearly judge somebody that quick? And why do men have to come out right away and say they didn't do it? Now, I don't like these people. It's like Zeke Elliott from the Cowboys. Everybody thinks, for the evidence that they have, that he was beating up his girlfriend. And he's basically coming out saying, no, I didn't do this, and I'm going to fight this. And a lot of people think he should just stop doing it. He should say, take the punishment and do it. Just like Winston and all these guys. Now, Winston eventually, I don't think he settled, but the university settled for him. And there's so many guys that are like, just settle or whatever that, or clearly he did it or whatever. I don't want this to be about men against female, but this shit needs to stop. And anyway, it's something that we need to talk about, and I get really upset, and why I'm really kind of like, why I wanted this video is because I get really upset because there was a time in my life that I was really into MGTOW, and I went away from that because I know that overall that wasn't the right thing for us, that we want to get back to certain things, that women and men respect each other, support each other, to save Western civilization and the white race and all that good stuff. So you can't have really, MGTOW is not really something that's going to help us with that. But they are so right when it comes to female nature and how men deal with that, and how many men will just sit there and white knight for any women, no matter what they say. And I get upset because guys have had to change so much in the workplace for women. We've had to accommodate them. Now, 10 years ago, I would have said, well, that's fine, we should do that. And I didn't really know about privilege and power. I wasn't into that. But I thought, well, we should do something. And I think we give a little bit. But what's happened is, because women have got more and more empowerment in the workplace, that a lot of this shit happens. And there's a reason why a lot of guys don't want to hire women, because they know that in the long run, women don't work as long. They have more suits against the company for things like this. And then guys will end up settling. The company will actually settle instead of going to court because it's not good for them. Even if they're not wrong, they haven't done anything wrong, they'll settle for the female, and the female will go somewhere else. And a lot of them will get on TV or they'll get online, they'll get some sort of following that way. And it becomes more and more prevalent for females that they get more money out of this. Like the girl at Columbia, she lied about it. Nothing happened to her. She got to go to the State of the Union. She got all this fame and shit. She gets money for now. It's like an overall, and girls see this. And now we know from studies that came out that women are more anxious than ever in their life, ever in recorded history. And it's basically because what they're taught, that all men are serial rapists or serial harassers. This is something that the feminism people, the feminists put out years ago, so the guys basically can't really control ourselves. And a lot of them talk about we should have a curfew, that we should not be able to go out in the streets after 9 o'clock, and then somebody reported back, well, I guess you would have no cops, no firemen, or anything like that. So if anything happens, nothing would get fixed. But the thing is, we've changed so much, and a lot of guys will do that. But I just don't like guys who continually apologize all the time, even when they don't do anything, because I think that's the right thing to do, and that's because our culture has changed so much now that we've been basically castrated. So it's happening in the workplace. That's why a lot of guys are not in the workplace anymore. A lot of guys don't go to colleges much anymore. People think what do they think it's for? Because women are smarter now, that's why they go to college, and that's why guys don't go to college. After a while, guys are going to say, why would I go there when I'm going to be looked at as I'm an evil person because of the color of my skin and my gender? Why go there? I can get education either online, or I can start my own business or have my own trade and do it that way. And if you deal with the office environment, and I did that for a long time, and I dealt with women probably more than men in my military career, and women are as crude as men can be, and rarely did anybody come up and say, hey, he sexually harassed me. Even though we had laws or rules in the military about it, every now and then it would come up about it, but not like it is in the real world. And the thing is that the male space has been invaded, and what happened years ago when somebody said, hey, when women come into our spaces, it's going to be a problem. And guys actually said, hey, they'll probably do this, or probably sue people because we don't act right, and all this stuff happened. And what happens is that the corporations changed, the laws changed, men had to change. Each time, though, women never changed. What they did is they took each more of their entitlement, and they took more. You take 1 inch, and you take a mile. As a group, women continually took more and more and more, and all along they said they were oppressed the entire time. And today, they'll still say this. I'm not talking about all women. I'm talking about the people who are in charge, who write these rules, these little gender studies professors that go up there and enforces or goes up to corporations and say you have to do this. So these corporations have diversity councils and gender councils and all that stuff, because apparently everybody there are either rapists, the men are rapists, and the women are just pristine and they don't do anything wrong. Now the question I would just have to say when it comes to sexual harassment, and I think most of the people you see online now basically say Me Too, they came out online. It's just this. It's like somebody came up, asked you to go out on a date, you didn't like it, you came back 2 days later, asked the same thing, and he said it maybe 3 or 4 times, and you saw that was harassment. Nothing that the old day used to be like sexual harassment was like if you were the management at the top and you went in there, you said, hey, I want a promotion, and he said, well, you're not going to do it unless you suck my dick. And that was harassment. Now it's like if you look at somebody different in the workplace, if you asked them 1 or 2 times to go out on a date, or whatever, if they're saying something, if they're wearing something different, and some people say if the AC is on too low, then it's harassment as well. But the real issue is, and most women I think will understand this, most of these women would give a shit if it was somebody like Brad Pitt that came up there and said, hey, would you like to go out? They would have no problem with it. What women want, their female nature only wants guys that they're attracted to. They're the ones who choose who they mate with. So a guy like Brad Pitt, you're not going to care if he goes up and asks you that. If he does it off color just to make sure you can be with him or something like that. They're all hypocrites. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in the workplace, that women are not harassed, but men are harassed all the time, and men can't really do anything about it because other men will come out and say, I can't believe you complained because a woman was, slapped your balls or something like that, or grabbed you or something like that. Well, you're not a real man. Why does that hurt you and something like that? Other men will not report it. So this whole thing that women don't report because they don't think they're going to be relieved. There is no rape culture for women in this country. If you really want to talk about rape culture in this country, it would be for men who have been raped or sexually assaulted. There is a rape culture there because men are looked at and they don't believe them, or they'll say, "Hey, why are you complaining?" Because anytime a decent-looking teacher has sex with a 14-year-old girl or boy, we all look at it and say, "Oh, he got what he wanted," and all that stuff, and we want to feel bad about the girl has to go to jail. Most of them don't go to jail. Most of them don't. The other way around, it's rape when a 35-year-old guy has sex with a 15-year-old girl. Clearly, she couldn't do what she was doing. She has no responsibility at all. She's the victim. And the other time, they're going to say the teacher is the victim. And what really got me started on this channel, this double standard, the hypocrisy when it comes to females, the nature that they have. I'm not saying all females. I'm saying there's a sect of women that will use whatever it is just for resources. It's something they have to do. If they think there's a possibility, they see if one person reports it, like, I can get some attention from here, and somebody might come say and support me. And if you're somewhat nice looking, there'll be guys that'll come along forever there because they will leave the brotherhood to defend you. And you see it in real life when you're a teenager and you go out. You have 5 or 6 brothers that are men who are boys are your friends. As soon as a girl comes in, all of a sudden the boys are out there, and then you have a lot of problems after that. And guys realize they should have never left their friends alone, and it happens, whatever. But this is how men are, or how women and men are. So I just wish that women would come out and call them out for it, and some do, because when you sit down with a woman like 25, 30 years old, and you talk about how women look at men and how other women are always battling against other women to approve, I guess, their lot in life, that they will they will just say things about each other behind their back all the time because it's a competition for them. So if somebody's getting some sort of attention from men, they'll do something even more. What was it, 6 months ago or 8 months ago? They all were out there shouting their abortions. What the fuck? And now they're, me too, I was this. And it's just, as somebody who has actually been raped in my life, I find it, I don't know, it's just hypocritical. And I think I'll stop talking about it because it just really upsets me that we're going to allow this, and we all think that the Weinstein is going to do good for the left is going to have to suffer something here. All they're really going to do is just basically playing all men as sexual something, whether we're harassers or rapists. They think that we're all trying to do this, although that we're the ones and the only ones that changed and compromised in the last 40 years in this country in the workplace. Women have not had to do anything. In fact, if they wanted to come out right now and said, "Hey, I'd like to be able to just wear this into to work," we would fall over for them because that's what we do. And guys have lost it. And before I close, the same study that talks about anxious for women and other studies that talk about there's no good men for, and they get all upset about it, and then they end up being 40 or 50 years old and become feminists, and they will do these things because there was no guy that wants to go out with them, because a lot of the guys who are betas are already gone, and the alphas aren't going to have anything to do with them. So they get upset, and they tell other women that are younger, and they'll give them bad advice so that they don't have a better outcome than they do, because women are vindictive this way. They'll make sure that other women have to have the same fate that they have, being lonely, not have with kids and something like that. Feminism has probably been the biggest stain in the country the last 40 years, and the offshoots of it. Marxism, all that stuff, cultural Marxism. This dividing of the sexes based on power and privilege and oppression and stuff. And it's one of those things that guys want to get some sort of credit for something. And guys have changed so much to help, to understand, to be there for women, and we still get blamed for everything. And it's just, it has to stop. And guys need to stand up and bring back the dominant, that we are the dominant sex, within reason. I'm not talking about caveman shit. I'm talking about, we're the leaders of the house, and mostly at the workplace we should be as well. Anyway, just let me know what you think below. We can talk about it down there, and we can talk about other things. And you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.